Okay, well, it's so nice to see you.
You as
And
well.
so, Brenda, could you please tell me, was there anything in particular that led you to a vegan lifestyle initially?
Well, initially, I connected with some interesting people.
Mhm.
And my family just assumed I was in a cult immediately. But but they were talking about things like, we're all connected and, your body is a temple and like all these kind of new concepts that I had never heard of. And so it wasn't the whole picture, but it was part of the picture and it really kind of resonated with me. It just made sense.
Right.
Um and so I was like, okay, I never was connected to animals, but at the same time I didn't like to prepare animal-based products. Um, so it was this kind of thing where it was like, oh, so I don't have to like touch that. Cool, let's do this. Let's let's
Yeah,
do it because I was always very, very squeamish
right.
about like I had no problem like eating animal products, but I just didn't want to touch the stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was since I was really young. So
yeah. I grew up in a British family, so and my folks would eat anything. And I mean, it was gross.
Oh.
It used to make me gag when I used to come home and my mother was cooking something like tripe and onions or something like that. And,
Oh.
oh, terrible. But anyway,
Yeah.
so I totally get it. Yeah. So how did your personal choices lead you to start the Afro-Vegan Society?
Oh, so I initially was just doing sort of collaborations with other folks.
Hmm.
And so I would help to organize this event or that event with different organizations, mostly animal rights organizations, but
Hmm.
some food justice organizations as well. And it kind of got to a point where, when you come onto somebody else's project, sometimes you feel like you could have done it better.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, it really, really got to a point when I saw how often the kinds of programming that I was helping to organize it was not really speaking to the community that I wanted to speak to,
Right.
because I kind of went back to where I came from. And
Hmm.
the kinds of activism that were being done was just not speaking to folks. And so I thought, well, this is where I came from. This is where I want to be doing the this kind of work. And so I'm going to try to just start my own organization and kind of do things in a different way, a way that I think would be most effective to
Hmm.
reach the folks that I want to reach. And it turned out to be true. So
Oh, cool.
I gambled and won.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I see you've also founded, let's see, the Greener Kitchen, Thrive Baltimore,
So much.
and Vegan Soul Fest,
Yes.
as well as the Food and Justice podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
you must be super busy. Where do you find where do you
Uh,
find the time? That's amazing.
I don't. I don't. There still keeps every day, there's
Yeah.
only 24 hours in a day, every day. And there's only 7 days in a week, every week. It's really not conducive to what my needs.
Right.
Because I need at
Yeah.
least 32 hours in a day and at least 12 days in a week. But I recently have had to really scale back what I was doing because I found that when you're doing too much, you can't really give as much time to each project.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be the most effective that I could be. So when Thrive had to shut down, when the community center had to shut down because of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
we sort of haven't like jump started Thrive again.
Mm-hmm.
Still out there, it still exists as an organization, but um, you know, since the lockdown, we just haven't really sort of started the community-based projects again. So that's kind of a weight lifted for now.
Mm-hmm.
And the Greener Kitchen, a similar thing has happened with the Greener Kitchen where it wasn't so much that the pandemic affected sales
Mm-hmm.
as it affected our mission because our mission was to make plant-based food affordable to everybody and
Right.
accessible to everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
because prices skyrocketed on every single thing, we were going to have to either cut people's benefits or raise our prices dramatically or just give food away. So so it was just like, okay, this is starting to get away from our mission.
Yeah.
And so we shut down the retail space and we've only been doing pop-ups and we've only been doing pop-ups that we believe in. So recently we catered an event with the Office of Sustainability. And they were willing to have like completely plant-based spread for the food and we were more than happy to do that because it's like we want to get into spaces where folks who haven't had this food can have an opportunity to experience the food, how amazing it is, and then start a conversation about how folks can start the transition over to plant-based eating. So we also did we donated some food to an organization last weekend called the Compost Collective,
Mm-hmm.
and they specifically work in low-income communities to educate low-income communities of color to educate folks about the benefits of sustainable living, composting, reduce, reuse, recycle, and all those kinds of things, information that isn't necessarily getting into those communities. So
Right.
I was absolutely thrilled to be able to donate food to them. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing with the Greener Kitchen at this point.
Can you tell me a little? I'm really intrigued about Vegan Soul Fest. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I can tell you a lot about that, but you
Okay.
probably don't have enough time because Vegan Soul Fest has pivoted. Initially, Vegan Soul Fest was this project um, that I set out to do with another vegan activist named Naja. She also co-owns a vegan restaurant in Baltimore, and the two of us who have been vegan for years and years, we got together to just socialize, and we ended up talking about what we could do for our community
Hmm.
to educate people and support people and give people resources. And so we came up with a festival because everybody loves festivals.
Yeah.
Um, and so we did this for 6 years in a row from 2014 to whatever 2014 to 2000, I guess. Um, and then the pandemic hit. We took 2 years off. And then we were talking about the event, and I realized that the Vegan Soul Fest was attracting a lot of vegans,
Mm.
which is great. I love the idea of doing an event where vegans can feel happy and comfortable, know that they can eat everything and, like that kind of thing. But that's not really my work. And so
Mm-hmm.
I started to think, there has to be a way to attract more mainstream folks
Hmm.
into the space. And so the idea that I had, because I was noticing how many people were just excited to be getting back out in 2022. And I kept hearing about music festivals, like people were excited to go to music festivals.
Yeah.
And we had always had music at Vegan Soul Fest, but we never focused on the music. We always focused on the talks, which the education part is really important to me,
Right.
and the cooking demos.
Right.
And that was always me. And so I thought, let's lean into this music and see if we can get the same response that some of these other music festivals get, and
Yeah.
then but everything's vegan,
Yeah.
which is groundbreaking. It's not anything that's really being done, and especially not being done in order to attract the mainstream. I know that there are like other festivals and that feature vegan food, but certainly not that is aimed at my community in
Yeah.
general, like specifically. And so we tried it. And we got mixed results. Everybody at the festival, nobody at the festival was vegan. I mean, I went around and talked to every single person, and
Hmm.
some people twice. And
Hmm.
and we attracted mainstream folks, non-vegan folks. It was beautiful, but we didn't have the turnout that we were hoping to have. Um, People were really engaged with the talks. We had Tracy McQuarter, we had Badass Vegan John Lewis,
Hmm.
we had some doctors, we had plant-based MDs, we had a plant-based pediatrician, just folks who were out and who were doing these talks, cooking demos and things like that. I mean, packed tent. The tents where the cooking demos and the talks were happening had lots of people. But we went from, I think we attracted 13,000 people in 2019 to maybe a third of that. And so that was difficult for me because I'm just used to planning these huge events where tons and tons of people come out. And this time it just didn't happen. So,
Well, yeah, but you planted a seed, right? As you say, you got a lot of people who are non-vegan, so
correct.
yeah, it's I'm a longtime musician, so I'm always interested in any kind of festivals. But
Oh,
we have one here, Brenda, which it happens in a big park about a block and a half away from where my wife and I live on a
okay.
yearly basis for 3 days, and it's called Rib Fest.
Oh no.
It's a
Oh,
vegan's nightmare.
yeah.
It's but it's full-time music.
Okay.
They start on a Friday evening and they run all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and it's bands after bands after bands
Mm-hmm.
after bands, and of course they've got the rib thing happening.
Mm.
But they've done really well. Now, one thing I'll say for them is that it's their all the money that they get, or the profits, go to charity.
Oh wow.
But it's 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 gross. It freaks me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually wanted to try and do something along the lines of a vegan fest, but it's as you know, it's a ton of work.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I ran it by our local vegan community, and they said, "Yeah, that would be great. Why don't you do it? Why don't you do it?" And I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh yeah, yeah,
Why don't
send me
you
a
do
look."
it?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Brenda, in your experience, what do you consider to be the greatest challenges when promoting a vegan lifestyle to folks who seem, perfectly happy with their
Yeah.
traditional meat and dairy diet?
Oh dear. There's so many. But if I were, and you mean specifically promoting it to these folks who are perfectly or just like in
Yeah.
general? Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
the problem that I always struggle with, and I recently interviewed. Do you know Gary Francione?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to Gary. I interviewed him just last week, and I was saying the same thing to him. What's the approach to take that's most effective when, because some people get super defensive, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, it's just interesting to know what kind of track that you've taken that you found most successful in conveying a vegan lifestyle that doesn't, they don't put up an immediate block to it. They kind of at least consider it. So,
Yeah. Well, for me and with the communities where I work, um, talking about animals is the biggest challenge. I
mm,
could talk about the benefits of plant-based eating all day, and folks are completely open and, they're just like, oh, wow, and like really excited.
yeah,
Um, Talking about the climate, um, and like how it's a more climate, like plant-based eating is a more climate-friendly way to eat.
yeah.
It's kind of new information to the folks who I'm talking to, so they seem pretty open to the idea that foods could be climate friendly versus, some foods could be worse for the environment.
Yeah.
And so that's okay. But specifically speaking to people in low income communities of color about animals
Mm,
is a tough sell because a lot of folks still feel like they're treated like animals.
mm,
And so even just helping them to make the connection and say, yeah, because animals are really mistreated. And so, like, can we make this connection? Can we say, like, animals shouldn't be treated like animals, you know?
yeah.
But because of the fact that, like, people who are experiencing the most marginalization are feel almost offended
Mm,
that I would open up conversations about any beings who are even more marginalized or even more oppressed, like that kind of thing.
yeah.
So I have to be very careful with
Yeah.
how I broach the topic.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking about folks who know about veganism, who, are familiar with the concept and they're just like, bacon, there's not a whole lot that you can do with folks like that. I mean, some folks will tell me, I don't care. And I will move on because there are a lot of people who will care. And my work is about speaking to those people, giving them the tools and the resources that they need to make this transition. And there are still millions and millions of people who I haven't talked to
Mm,
who will be open to this message. So I can't get bogged down in the folks who aren't open. I just have to move on and continue to reach out to the people who maybe just don't know, maybe have been thinking about it but never tried, and
yeah.
then I've had an enormous amount of success with those. Like that is my demographic. The especially the folks who didn't know
Mm,
because all of this information is just brand new and it's shocking. The way animals are treated in the food
mm,
industry is shocking to them,
yes.
and they're like, "Oh, I hate this. What can I do?" And so those folks are some of my biggest successes, honestly.
Yeah. It's like, again, it's like instead of hitting them over the head with it, at least even with somebody who appears to be really negative, you're still planting a seed. When I was talking to Gary Francione, he mentioned that he had actually gotten an email that day from
Mm.
somebody he met 6 years previously. Apparently, the guy told him, and the guy said to him, when I first listened to your message, I was really pissed off, but
Mm,
you I've been thinking about what you said, and now it really makes sense to me. So it's like an evolutionary thing almost
mm.
in some
It is.
cases. So
It is. Absolutely.
yeah, talking about Gary, one thing he indicated to me was he's not a fan of groups like PETA, as he views them as big business, and
Hmm.
that he figures they're willing to make compromises with the very industries they claim to be working against. Do you have any thoughts in this regard, Brenda?
Yeah, there's so many thoughts. Most of them I should probably keep to myself, but I will I will be careful. So I am not a fan of the large organizations
Mm,
that have sort of made like made nonprofit um for profit.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
interesting. It's interesting. In terms of like I have colleagues, friends, other activists who
Hmm.
really sincerely believe that working with the industry sometimes is better than working against them, because it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? And so they've explained to me time and time again, and I'm still like, nope, won't do it. But they've
Hmm.
explained to me, like, for instance, folks who are doing trade justice work, or
Yeah.
trade anti-trade work, um, they're like, well, factory farming is the enemy of small farms. so we can join forces with the small family farms
Mm.
against the big factory farms, and we might be able to get some wins.
Right.
We can work with the unions that are there to protect the small fisheries, the small, whatever,
Yeah.
and we can all push back against the large industrial factory farms. And I'm like, hey, do it. I'm not
Mhm.
gonna stop you from doing that particular work. That's not my work.
Yeah.
That's not my work. I want to skip that part
Hmm.
and just get to the part where I help people to go vegan. And it works for me. So, and maybe that works for them. But without giving any names, I do disagree with several of the large nonprofit organizations that are allegedly
Hmm.
working in the best interest of animals. Because I think at a certain point, you just kind of lose the thread
Hmm.
and you kind of go off message. And I
Right.
think that's what's happened with some of these huge nonprofit organizations now. I think they've gone off message.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, the main theme for this article, being from Meditation Magazine, that I'll be writing about veganism. It's going to be on veganism, compassion, and loving kindness for all beings. As those are basically the main teachings I grew up with, as following the Buddhist path, and also
Mm,
I tend to be really empathetic as well.
mm.
So would you like to say anything about this particular aspect, that being love and compassion for the animals?
Oh, yes. I don't often have an opportunity to talk about that, and surprisingly,
Hmm.
because people want me to talk about food justice. Like that's my thing, that's my
Yeah,
area, and
sure.
and and so I don't often get invited to talk about compassion and kindness and as it pertains to our, fellow earthlings.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but I am of the opinion, and I have said this publicly and been shunned for it, but I am of the opinion that we have an opportunity as humans to evolve
Hmm.
away from our cruelness and callousness and violence. Um, and this is one way that we can. This is one avenue. I mean, there are multiple avenues through which we can do that, but living vegan and having compassion for animals is a really effective way, I think, to question some of the normalized violence that we've been um, subjecting our fellow earthlings to, and to do something better, to do something that will make a huge difference in the evolution of humanity. And
Hmm.
that was the thing that really did it for me. I started to get into some spiritual practice as well. And the way that we engage with animals on the planet was such a huge thing. It's like this big black, like uh like this huge blemish
Hmm.
on humanity.
Right.
Whereas there is kindness and there is goodness, and even people who consider themselves to be animal lovers, still eat certain animals, or people who consider themselves to be kind and compassionate still may go to rodeos or the zoo or whatever.
Yeah.
And so this is an opportunity for us as human beings to seriously question our behavior currently on the planet,
Hmm.
to challenge some of the things that are just habit. They're
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
habit that's been passed on from generation to generation. It's not like we have to do these things. We don't have to have a rodeo. We don't have
Right.
to keep animals in captivity at marine parks. It's just something that we've been doing for a while, and we can stop. And I think that
Mhm.
kindness and compassion and just really looking at ways that we can show that to our fellow earthlings is a great opportunity. for us to
Yeah.
challenge those things and grow.
Thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for including me in this.
Oh, yeah, you bet. Take care, and
All
hopefully we'll
righty.
talk again soon.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.